My name is Ranger Lydia. I am the park interpreter at Franklin Mountain State Park, where I am right now. It's a beautiful sunny day. Um, and Today we're going to be talking about plants of the Chihuahuan Desert. But I figured that there are a lot of people are kind of going to be talking about the flora and fauna today, so I'm going to kind of take it in a slightly different direction. And so we'll start just with myself. I actually grew up here in El Paso. And let me tell you, I did not really appreciate it. I didn't. Growing up, I viewed this place as just sort of hot and dry and dead. And that's just how I viewed deserts growing up here. And I never really got an appreciation for that. But I went to college and I got myself a degree in biology and I learned a few things. And so when I moved back, I got to sort of re-experience the Chihuahuan Desert here in El Paso for the first time again, in a way. I got to discover it with fresh eyes, and I saw something very different than I had when I was growing up. Yes, the desert is hot, it's dry, but I also saw that there was life in a lot of unexpected places, sometimes in unexpected ways, and definitely very hardy. It's survival type things. These plants and animals were surviving and thriving in an unexpected way and in an unexpected place. So the reason I asked you guys, what do you think of when you think of a beautiful place? You guys said, water, flowers, open spaces, no trash, no people, stuff like that. A lot of times when if you scroll through Instagram or something looking for some beautiful images of outdoor places, you'll see some really showy stuff, and it's beautiful. You'll see, like the tropical rainforest. You've got all this green life and all these different kinds of plants and animals. You'll see kind of these wide open mountainscapes, or a lot of really showy flowers. So a lot of things that we think of as beautiful are very showy, but not everything is. Sometimes it's a little bit more subtle. And that's what I found in the Chihuahuan Desert and other deserts that I've been to. It has the amazing capacity to inspire awe, just like those grand kind of showy views and images do, but kind of in a subtle way that's unexpected and a little bit hidden. But if you learn to start looking for those things, you can find some really beautiful places and things in these deserts. And that's kind of what I wanted to highlight today. But of course, if we're going to start to talk about the Chihuahuan Desert, as we have been doing today, we have to put that in context. So what is the Chihuahuan Desert? I'm sure other people have talked a little bit about this, but the Chihuahuan Desert is a desert in it's in West Texas, southern New Mexico, and northern Mexico. It's a very large region, and it's bounded on either side by two mountains, the Sierra Madre Occidental and the Sierra Madre Oriental. And so you have these two mountain ranges, and it creates this really interesting topography. You have these basins and ranges, so you have this different kind of ecosystem that you can see in the Chihuahuan Desert, and that makes it really amazing. In fact, I looked up to some information about the Chihuahuan Desert, and apparently, according to the National Park Service on their website, it says that it's actually considered the most diverse desert in the Western Hemisphere and one of the most diverse arid regions in the entire world. So it's sort of unexpectedly diverse. You would think a desert, nothing grows there, but we actually have a really amazing diversity here. And not only that, but it's actually one of the most endangered regions as well, because we have all this diversity, but it's also kind of fragile. It's being impacted by overgrazing, bad agricultural practice historically, overuse of water, some urbanization kind of encroaching on these natural spaces. So there's a lot of things that are endangering this space, but it is a really amazing place. And if you look for it, it'll make you work to find it, but you can find some really amazing stuff out here. And so I'm going to kind of share a few plants today, really focusing on those little details that I think make them really cool, really amazing, and some of their strategies for surviving in such a harsh desert environment. So in order to do that, I am going to have a slight moment of switching technology around. So I'm going to switch over to my phone screen and stop sharing here. So give me just a second to switch my video around for you. Okay, so it looks like we are all set. Video is working. This is amazing. Okay, so we're going, I'm gonna walk around here. I'm gonna switch my screen around so that you guys can see where I'm going. So the first one that I'm going to kind of show you guys today is this beautiful Ocotillo. These are somewhat surprising. At first glance, they often look, well, just like dead sticks a lot of the time. They often don't have leaves on them. This one right here does have some leaves. And you can kind of see it also is completely covered in thorns. So when a lot of people look at this, they think of it mostly as a thorn bush. So you definitely want to be careful with this plant. But I find it really amazing how this plant survives and how it grows. So this right here is the very tip of the plant. This is its most recent growth, and it's actually quite beautiful. If you look, let's see if I can, okay, see if I can get it to focus. Let's try it from this direction. Okay. Okay. So the coloration on these tips is often like a light gray color, but depending on the year and how it's growing, these little intermediate spots can be almost a bright purple in color. You do definitely want to be careful with these plants. Like I said, they have these really thick thorns. They can be quite painful. But the way that this plant survives is also in order to preserve water, it will usually not have any leaves on it. So you can see these branches right here, they don't have any leaves, but right here we do still have some leaves left. Basically, it will only produce leaves when it has water. When it rains, it will grow these leaves, and then it will drop them when it gets drier. That prevents it from losing a lot of water through those leaves. But if you look down the plant, we start here at the tip with those lovely, amazing sort of grayish and purple streaked tips. But if you look down the plant, you'll get to the base of the plant and it will be completely different. You'll start to see this bark sort of break open. It's a little bit more mottled. Let me see if I might have to go around the plant to get a good view of it. There we go. it's a little bit more mottled, and you see right in here where the bark sort of breaks open. You have this bright green bark that is actually doing the job of leaves. So this is an amazing plant. I think it's actually quite beautiful. You have these sort of broken open bits at the base that show the older growth. You have this bright green that's doing photosynthesis. And then towards the tips, you have this completely different color pattern of gray and purple. You occasionally have the green of the leaves. And then when it does have flowers, which it's not in flower right now, it will have these beautiful red flowers. You can see a little bit of the leftover from that here growing there. So this is a really amazing plant that can be quite surprising. Another one over here. The Chihuahuan Desert has an amazing diversity of cactus, and this is one of our cacti species. This one here is called, well, it has a number of different names. I generally call it eagle claw cactus, and that's because of the way that the spines sort of curl out as if it's in a claw shape. But some people call it Turk's head, some people call it horse crippler. It can actually be quite difficult to spot sometimes. This cactus, the way it preserves water is to have this sort of fleshy stem that holds a lot of water and nutrients, and then it grows very, very slowly over time, making use of the nutrients that it stores. But these are also, most of the time, a little bit difficult to spot. They tend to blend in with the ground surface. However, when these guys flower, they'll flower from the center here, and the flowers are actually a bright pink. If they're a large flower, it will basically be as big as the cactus itself. So it's quite a large flower, and it will just grow, it'll flower for a short period of time, but be this beautiful bright pink color that really stands out. So that's one thing that I've often been surprised when I've driven past a hill that I drive past fairly frequently, and then one day all of a sudden it'll be covered in these bright pink flowers, and I never even realized there was cactus in that location before. So that's a really cool plant that you'll see around here. Another thing that I would like, I was up here earlier kind of exploring, and I found this plant. One of the things we had said earlier was that one of the things we associate with beautiful outdoor spaces can be flowers. And this year we certainly had a really great flower bloom as in the spring for the poppies. But that's not the only flower out here. We have a lot of different flowers, not a lot blooming right now, but I found these little guys when I was walking around earlier today. They're these small little flowers on like these trailing plants, and this is like a aesthetic type of flower that you'll find here in the desert a lot. This is a very small plant. It's not especially showy. You've got these tiny little flowers, and you kind of have to look at them. Sometimes they surprise you. You don't know that you're going to find something like that. But they're just, I think they're absolutely adorable. You can find all sorts of different flowers here locally, depending on the time of year, depending on the amount of rain we've had. Every season, I feel like I find a different plant that I've never seen before out here. If you guys have questions as we go along, you can stick those into the chat box as well, and I'll try to answer those as we go. Let's see. Oops, I passed where I was going to go. We're going to have to go back a little bit. Now, I am going to go off trail here for just a second. I don't like going off trail most of the time, but I am going to do this very carefully. The thing about the Chihuahuan Desert and all desert landscapes is the soil surface is very fragile, and so you want to be very careful where you're stepping, and the plants often take a very long time to grow. So if you do step on them, it'll take a long time for them to grow back. So I'm being very careful out here. But I wanted to share this little guy with you. This is another one of our desert cacti. This one here is called a Texas rainbow cactus. And the thing about these ones is every single one is a little bit different. So you do have they are all shaped fairly similarly. And they all have these different color patterns. They could be anywhere from bright purple to pink to white to green. And the thing is, when they do flower, unfortunately, I couldn't find one that was flowering today. They have little flowers that grow all the way around the top, and it looks like it's wearing a little crown. So they're really amazing little plants, and they're absolutely beautiful. So that's another one of our cactus. Since I pointed out the Texas rainbow cactus, I have to also point out the New Mexican rainbow cactus. We have to be fair to all states here. We also have the New Mexico rainbow. So I'll show you that one here. It's right there. It has a little bit longer central spines, but it still has that same sort of spiral pattern of white and purple and green, and they're really, really fun plants to see. Both of these cacti are pretty common, so you can find them in a lot of places here locally. And I wanted to just point out one more thing that's out here nearby, and this is more of a story, I suppose, than just showing a cool plant. But I wanted to share this because not only are these plants really unique and beautiful and amazing survivors, but they become part of our community and our culture and our stories. So I'm going to show you this one here. Come on, flip. Okay, so this plant here is an Agave lechuguilla. But what I wanted to point out was not necessarily unique to this plant. It's actually the type of stalk that it has. This is a plant along with our yuccas and our sotols, which grow these long stalks where they have flowers and fruits. With this agave, it will only grow a stalk once in its life and then die. So you can actually see that the stalk that this, the plant that this stalk goes to has died already, and then the plants around it are still green. But the amazing thing, well, the story of these for me is that my grandmother actually used to use stalks like this instead of Christmas trees, actually. She would often use the yucca stalks, but she would go and find places where she could sustainably harvest an old dead stalk that had already released its seeds, and she would take it home and actually spray paint it gold. And so all of these individual little seed pods would be the spray painted this bright gold, and then she would cover it with little jalapeno Christmas lights. And so that's just a story that I have associated with these plants, which is a unique thing, I think, about every place is that the plants and the place and the animals become part of the stories that we share and the memories that we have. So I did want to give a few minutes for questions. If anyone has a question for me, you can go ahead and put it in the chat. And I'll give a few minutes so that we can do that. It looks like I have frozen. So I'm going to switch over. Okay. Did we have any questions from anyone? Any questions?
Lydia, I have a question. So thinking about the different types of plants that we see all over in our desert, do you have any recommendations if we wanted to make maybe our yards more of those, I guess, desert type landscapes and make them more friendly to our wildlife as well using the plants?
Absolutely. One thing I would suggest is to look at local nurseries. Do a little bit of research and figure out which nurseries locally source local plants and grow them here. And then that way you'll get plants that are one, local to this area, and two, are used to this environment. They grew up, so to speak, here, and so they'll survive a little bit better. But some of those plants, the Ocotillo is actually a really good one. It's very easy to propagate, so you can, if you know someone who has an Ocotillo in their yard, you can actually ask for a cutting of it, and you can bury it and it'll grow. And the flowers are absolutely beautiful, and they attract a lot of hummingbirds. They're important plants for hummingbirds in this area. And then I would look at like different types of cacti that we have here. They will always be good for growing in this area, and many of them do create beautiful flowers that are great for our local insects and pollinators as well.
Very cool, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions out there? We have a couple minutes left. Any other?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering, I know that they had a cactus rescue organization. Do you know if they still have that?
So the Cactus and Rock Club is still active as far as I know. I think they have a Facebook page, and you can contact them through their Facebook page and a website as well. I think they're still operate. I haven't heard that they have stopped. I'm sure that they're kind of not doing as much stuff right now as most organizations are, but they are still active, yes.
Okay, and do you have anything you can say about the barrel cactus?
Absolutely. I actually specifically didn't talk about the barrel cactus because it's actually a Sonoran desert species, and we're just far enough west, right here in the Franklins, that we're basically the only place in the Chihuahuan desert that grows it. But it is a beautiful cactus, which does grow in our area. And the thing with those is that they take forever to grow, and they're very sensitive to cold, actually. A while back, we had a big freeze that killed off a lot of our barrel cactuses in the park. But yes, they're amazing plants. I don't know that I can say anything about where to get one. They're a little bit more difficult to find, but in the park we do have a lot. And one of the things we did when we built the new visitor center is I actually got our volunteers to come out, and we actually dug up one or two that we found in the construction zone and replanted it here in the park so that they could grow.
Okay, I think like the cactus rescue, and it's got some babies, so if anybody wants any, I have some.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so I think we have about 2 minutes left. We did have a question come up in the chat. It's plants that appear dead but then spring to life after a rain. Is this a new phenomenon because of more desertification or something that has always been part of their growth pattern? Will they eventually be overcome and die out if it continues to get drier? So I think this is gonna be our last question.
Okay. Yeah, so stuff like the Ocotillo, it will, that is part of its life cycle. That's a natural way that it uses the desert cycles. So one of the things with the Chihuahuan Desert is we get a majority of our rain usually during our monsoon season. And so we'll get these periods where we have more rain than at any other time during the year. So these plants are naturally adapted to take advantage of that. And so it is a natural part of their cycle to kind of shut down a little bit more and then come to life a little bit more when it gets that rain. So it's kind of like if you go up north, trees will be deciduous, and so they'll drop their leaves in the winter. It's a similar thing in the desert. It's just that instead of being winter versus summer, it's dry versus wet. Now, some of these plants, actually all of these plants, will be affected by desertification. So if it continues to get hotter and drier, the plants are either going to have to adapt or they will not survive. But for the most part, that adaptation of producing the most leaves when there's rain, that is naturally occurring in these plants.
Very good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lydia, for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Here. I know it is already 11:30, so we are going to jump over into our next presentation. But again, a big thank you for sharing about the plants over in the park there. And we hope we'll see everybody at our next our 11:30 presentation. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Lydia.
Thank you.